It just confirmed that there was actually a rift between both of them. And the snub in the video circulating was because of the rift. Because if there was no rift, why will this day need to report that they went to Dobale, Niwaju Baba, and say, Baba, Kabi Sima Binusa? There's a rift. But the question I'd like to ask this morning as a political watcher, analyst, journalist here is, what is Governor Sanwo-Olu sin? Is it because he did stand up for himself when the speaker was trying to denigrate him? Is it Governor Sanwo-Olu's sin that a speaker that's supposed to be first among his equals voted him out of power and removed him as speaker? And President Tinubu came, called them on and said, go and put him back there. Is that his sin? What is Governor Sanwo-Olu's sin? For asserting himself in the States? See, don't get me wrong. I don't agree with Governor Sanwo-Olu on many things. But this, based on the reportage, and they say all his sins are forgiven, what did he do? I think these are questions we should ask ourselves. Because in all of this, I think the greatest sin here was committed against the Lagos people, who are represented by members in the Lagos Parliament. And these members voted out a speaker, and they had to railroad the decision of all these members because it's not in tandem with what some people want. I think the show of shame at the Lagos Houses of Assembly is a sin against the Lagos people, where security authorities had to be invited because they actually wrote a letter to invite them to reinforce them to come in. While all of that, what I call yokonyori, went on at the Lagos House of Assembly. I think the greatest sin here was committed against the Lagos people. After they thought that they now have a female speaker, but all of a sudden she was made to sing the song, to rescind her speakership, and says, I think she was singing a song called Oreni. The sin I see here was committed against the Lagos people for all of that back and forth. So what is Governor Sanwo-Olu's sin? Because I don't understand the word all sins are forgiven. And maybe you might like to call me a political nepios this morning. I will never understand all sins are forgiven. We have to remember that the seat of the governor must be respected. Secondly, power is transient. My second intervention this morning will be about Minister Bagudu saying that things are well, investors are coming in. You see, we are not saying we don't applaud some of the successes. I have repeated kudos to this government on Bonga, because Bonga was left in the cold for a lot of years. Under this government is your success. But my argument has always been, it's not pervasive across board, and you cannot say because of pledges for investments, it's a sign that things are working. No. When we see more, we will say more. I do my bit to propagate everything that is being done. In fact, if you check my Twitter page, every write down about the explainer that this government published, I publish it there. But my training also tells me to see to the facts. And what are the facts? The fact that inflation is still high. People are suffering. People are in penury. An average Nigerian cannot enjoy their Salah holidays because of poverty. You might argue with me that many years ago, too, people couldn't enjoy their Salah holidays. Yes. But we've seen an uptick. The fact is 13 million new people, based on World Bank projection, we're going to be added to the poverty trail because of the decisions made by this government. Those are facts on ground. I will celebrate the ones they did. Bonga, yes, I say it again. But the fact on ground is that people are suffering.
Okay, very quickly. I mean, last week, in my column, back page of this day, I had pointed out that I imagine that the rift, suspected, reported, speculated rift between the president and the Lagos State governor, will be resolved. That it will end up as a family affair. That it was a father and son matter, and people should not put too much, energy into these speculations. And that's how it has turned out. Now the president and his son, they've resolved their matter. And Governor Sanwo-Olu says, oh, it was a father and son thing, and all of that. Even if there was a little drama during the visit of the GAC, along with Governor Sanwo-Olu, when the president was handed the report of the primaries of the local government elections, he said, okay, to show that he was no longer angry, he would not even bother to read the report. Upon which we were told that the GAC team prostrated to the president. But in any case, he said, all sins are forgiven. As father of the nation, I think it's good. It's a good thing to forgive. How did they say it again? To forgive is divine, right? To err is human. However, the major part of the story for me will seem to be one, the effort of the peacemakers who are listed extensively in the this day report. Mr. Gilbert Shaguri, Chief Olusegun Oshoba, Chief BC Akonde, Chief Dipo Iludoyin, Mr. Tajuddin, Alhaji Tajuddin Ulusi, and Mr. Dele Alake, and a host of others, former Governor Babatunde Raji Fashola, who had interceded again and again to make sure that, look, there is peace between the president and the man in charge of his home state. Now, whether it was this had something to do with the Obasa matter, that's the Speaker of the Lagos House of Assembly, or, the primaries, well, nobody went into the details. Rather, the president, the governor used the opportunity to thank, the president and to acknowledge the support of the president for the initiatives in Lagos State. And he used the opportunity to also talk about things he's doing, the new coaches that they're buying for the blue train line, and then his promise specifically that the forthcoming local government elections in Lagos State will be free and fair, will be peaceful. And then the June 12th, those who are saying they will protest on June 12th, the anniversary of the annulment of the June 12, 1993 election. He said we are talking to them. Well, just for the governor to realize that the right to protest is constitutional. And the responsibility of the security agencies is to make sure that they maintain peace, law, and order. And we expect that with this turning point in his relationship with the president, that this will further bring benefits to Lagos State and the people of Lagos State particularly. Because if you have a governor fighting the president, the people who will lose at the end of the day are the ordinary people who live in that particular state. That's that about that. As for Senator Atiku Bagudu, the Minister of Budget and National Planning, well, he was saying basically that the economic reforms of the administration are beginning to yield fruits. Well, we have had similar things from the IMF, from the World Bank. What reforms? It's a reform-minded administration with regard to foreign exchange, with regard to fuel subsidy removal, with regard also to the removal of subsidy on electricity, which President Tinubu himself had said again and again, had helped the government, to save a lot of revenue. And these savings are translated into more revenue even at the state level. Now, before now, we celebrated the fact that the federal government and the states, taken together, were able to pay off debts to the tune of about $3.4 billion. But what is surprising, in the last few days, is that we have now been told that these state governments, state and local councils, have chalked up domestic debt of up to 4 trillion naira. So you pay off one debt, you chalk up debts in another area. The other concern, Mr. Bagudu says, people are beginning to see the effect of the economic reforms. Well, I think it was Mr. Bismarck Rewani that said that, look, the gains of the reforms will be slow in coming. We just trickle down slowly. I've forgotten the technical economic term that he used, but what he was saying simply is that the gains will not come overnight. It will take a while. Well, the truth of the matter is that we've just celebrated Salah, Eid al-Kabir, Eid al-Adha. And the reality is that many families could not celebrate. The cost of living is still very high. People who used to slaughter 2-3 rams could not even slaughter a ram this year. And that, in itself, is a metaphor for the kind of hardship, the burden that many Nigerian families are having to shoulder. And that is the reality. But of course, Minister Bagudu, who has also been a governor before, may not have any issues with getting a ram or a cow for Salah. So at that level, he may not really know how the ordinary people feel. But the ordinary people, they say, he who wears the shoe knows where he pinches. And we, the ordinary people, are still saying that, look, that trickle-down effect is yet to get to many families. The cost of living remains high, which means, yes, that at a structural level, the reforms may be in place, but in terms of impact, the ordinary Nigerian is not yet feeling it. It is when it gets to the ordinary Nigerian that we begin to say, yes, these reforms, have trickled down to the last common denominator, being the ordinary man in the equation. And that is why I think the IMF and the World Bank recommended investment in social spending. That the Nigerian government, apart from providing infrastructure, apart from reform, also has to worry about the welfare of the people. And that, I think, is the challenge for the Tinubu administration. And that, I think, should be the long-term objective of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. After all, what is that popular saying? That, when Olugban was king, I was able to buy 7 rows. When Aresa was king, I was also able to buy 7 rows. When Tinubu, is king, we will be able to count his success in the number of robes that we have been able to buy. I don't want to sing a Yoruba song this morning, but those who understand Yoruba will know that people measure, their success under a particular dispensation by the level of prosperity that they are able to experience.
Absolutely. Now, a lot of the pushback that liberal reforms receive is for this very reason, is that historically they have a tendency to create a wide gap of inequality. You look at countries like Brazil, look at countries like South Africa that have some of the highest inequality statistics in the world, and you see that macroeconomic indices may paint green and everything may look rosy on a spreadsheet. But the question is, what are we doing to bridge this inequality that is inevitably created by an economy driven by capitalism, by competitiveness, where some of the lowest of the people, the workers, the working class, are unable to attain the wealth as it benefits those who are in the elite class or those who are in the entrepreneurial categories at the very top of society. So those are the things we continue to wait for, to see more consistent and more aggressive intervention when it comes to bridging this inequality that continues to grow by the day. However, one of the statements that got my attention was the reference to subnationals and the fact that we've heard this statement a couple of times now that the income of subnationals has now tripled because of the removal of subsidy. Now, we also know that a number of these subnationals have been able to cancel legacy debts. They've been able to pay these debts. But as Dr. Abati has said, unfortunately, many have also picked up new debts. However, I want to look at the issue of development as it pertains to these state budgets, because development agencies usually say that 25 to 35% of a budget should be spent on development, on infrastructure and capital projects in order for one to achieve optimal development. Now, something interesting happened in the 2025 state budgets, which is that for the first time, most of them have allocated, on average, 65.7% of their budgets to capital expenditure. We know that usually recurrent expenditure, salaries and so forth, dominate their budgets. So we're seeing a shift where these states are now saying that, okay, we're going to commit more money to infrastructure and to capital expenditure. You have states like Lagos, Enugu and Niger State who are actually spending over 80% of their budgets on capital expenditure. Now, if this is done diligently and if this is done efficiently, then by the end of this year or by this time next year, we should be able to see rapid transformation in these states. But the question is, are we going to see this transformation? It's also time for us to focus on the subnationals and hold them accountable. What are they doing with these budgets? What is the performance of their budgets? Because we also know about the several scandals that happen where it pertains to these capital expenditure projects, because it's always reported that this is the juicy place to pad. So I think it's also important that we hold the state governments accountable as they've done these extremely ambitious budgets that are supposed to cause a rapid development in the next 1 year. And we need to follow up and see how far they are able to go with that and how much is able to be achieved. Secondly, there's a concern that now all of this is being, all of this attention and all of these duties and responsibilities are being put on the FAC. However, how many of these states are actually doing something to grow their IGR, to create jobs beyond depending on FAC allocations? Now, very quickly, as I round up in just a few seconds on Lagos State, they say politics is Machiavellian in nature. We have the Lagos State local government elections coming up on the 12th of July, and we know that the party is supreme. It would have been in bad taste for the party to have animosity, that's APC, leading up to the local government elections, especially as we know that, yes, as much as work was done, 2023 presidential election, we know that Peter Obi won by 10,000 votes. Yes, when there was re-strategy and everybody came together, Governor Sanwo-Olu was then able to win his election with over 400,000 votes. However, what this shows is that APC cannot be complacent about Lagos State. So it's interesting to see that all hands have come on deck to ensure that there is stability and unity in the party as we count down to the 12th of